that there has been a lot of fighting between Attorney General Pam Bondi specifically and the leadership over at the FBI over who's to blame in this situation.
Uh-oh.
Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, they came from this MAGA world where they themselves had pushed a lot of questions about the so-called client list that Epstein had beforehand. And now the MAGA base is just...
And now they look like fucking clowns. This whole Epstein thing has been kind of crazy. It's been a big disappointment that Trump, he says that he's going to release the Epstein list, and then he doesn't. You know, he says, oh, there's nothing to see here. Like, we're only going to release information that was previously released anyway. Let's see what's going on.
All right, this breaking news. Sources tell CNN that Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino has told people that he's considering resigning amid a major clash between the FBI and DOJ over the continued fallout from the release or lack thereof of the Jeffrey Epstein memo. Joining us right now in files, joining us right now on the phone is CNN.
So there's like an inner war between the Department of Justice and the FBI. And it sounds to me like the Department of Justice is the one, I mean, that's the way that they framed it. It sounds to me like the Department of Justice is the one that doesn't want to release the files, whatever secret files remain, right? And the FBI is the one that's like, hey, why not just release this? And there's a clash between the two. And so now this guy's considering he's the deputy director of the FBI. So I think he's like second in command of the FBI. And he's looking to leave. He's like, maybe I'm going to retire because I don't, you know, this is a bunch of bullshit. So that's kind of crazy.
And anchor-in-chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what more are you learning?
Yeah, Fred, it remains to be seen if he actually follows through with what he has told colleagues. But what we do know is that Dan Bongino has told people he is considering resigning as the deputy director of the FBI over the fallout that has continued ever since this memo was released last Sunday. The anger inside the MAGA base has only continued to grow.
And if you look at his face when he did that, there was it was like a press conference where it was him and the director of the FBI. I think his name is Kash Patel. And Kash was talking and the camera was facing both of them, but at an angle. And this dude's face, bro, he looked like he had seen a ghost. He was just like he wasn't even there, dude. Like he just looked like, man, he looked like he had gotten in trouble. You know, like his parents left him at home. They're like, hey, we're going to be gone away for the weekend. Don't throw any parties. Don't do anything crazy. And like he throws the party and then he finds out his parents are coming home early and he's like, that's how he looked, man. Like he knew something. And now that this is coming out here that he's actually thinking of resigning, that sounds like a big fucking deal. Cause it's like, I guess this is like, he can't, like this is messing with his conscience, right? Like he just doesn't agree with this. He's not going to be serving under this type of cover up.
Instead of going away as some officials inside hoped it would. And now our colleagues, along with Christian Holmes, Hannah Rabinowitz, and Evan Perez, we're hearing that he's considering resigning after they had this heated confrontation with the Attorney General Pam Bondi over the handling of this earlier this week. And basically there was a meeting at the White House where the FBI Director, Kash Patel, was there, the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. They were questioned about whether they were part of a story, that there was basically some infighting over how this came out and this memo that said...
It was around this here. He was wearing this suit, I believe.
We're not going to be releasing any more information related to Jeffrey Epstein. And I should note that we are told Bongino denied leaking any story to this outlet that it was reported on. But there has been a lot of fighting between Attorney General Pam Bondi specifically and the leadership over at the FBI over who's to blame in this situation. I think the context here is obvious.
I mean, obviously the person that's to blame is Trump because he's the one that's, you know, yelling out the orders. Clearly Trump is the one. Now, maybe there's like something that got messed up in terms of execution. But I mean, it's hard to imagine how bad, like how much can this be messed up when it seemed like it was Trump that made everything worse. When he was at that press conference, it looked like they were in the White House. Pam Bondi was there. One of the reporters asked him the question of like, hey man, can you tell us about like the whole Epstein thing? Like, are you going to release more information? Because it doesn't feel like the information you released is enough. And Pam is going to answer the question. Pam Bondi is about to answer the question. And then just Trump just goes, can I? Right? And he like interrupts her. And he says, look, when are you guys going to stop asking? Like, this Epstein thing was forever ago. When are you guys gonna, like, do you guys still care about Epstein? Like, we got to deal with these Texas floods and all this ice shit and all this and that. Like, we're talking about Epstein? Like, that doesn't matter anymore, right? And it's like, that's the worst thing he could have said because it makes him look like incriminating, right? Because he's coming off as somebody who's essentially trying to bury everything, you know, trying to like slip it all under like the table or whatever. There's nothing to see here, guys. Everything is fine. By the way, have you seen these Texas floods? Have you seen the shit situation over there with ICE? We got more important things to do. Stop asking about Epstein. Just think about it. Who would want to not be asked about the Epstein files? Somebody who has something to hide. That's who. If you're enjoying this video and you'd like to see bigger and better content, the only thing you need to do is hit subscribe and like, and I'll take care of the rest. So it was a bad look. And you know, Trump is very kind of like, he's kind of like this. He just kind of says shit without thinking it. But it did not make anything any better. If I were him and I knew that this shit was bad, like, I mean, some people are saying, oh, Trump is on the list. That's what it is. I don't even know that Trump is on the list. I think that it's more like there's probably people there who it would be very problematic for the government, Trump, his allies, somebody to release this information. Because if you think about it, if it was just like Trump was there, when Biden was trying to send Trump to jail, when they had like 34 charges or whatever it was, and he had been convicted of all this stuff, why didn't Biden just come out and say, oh, and by the way, he was like fucking in like Epstein's pedo island? Why didn't he? Why? Right? They had it right there. They had the card to play and they didn't play it. So that says to me that something else is going on here.
Say Dan Bongino, Cash Patel, they came from this MAGA world where they themselves had pushed a lot of questions about the so-called client list that Epstein had beforehand. And now the MAGA base is just...
And now they look like fucking clowns. Because like you have Cash Patel in like Joe Rogan interviews and whatever saying, oh yeah, man, why hasn't Biden released the list? It's because they're hiding something. That if we win, the first day that I'm in there, I'm going to release all the details. Then they win. And then like Trump's like, oh, well, you know, we said that we were going to release it on the first day, but actually, you know, we got to process the information. So it's going to be later. We're going to release it later. And then later happens, you know, and then they say, there's nothing to see. There are no files. There was no list. Who the hell's supposed to believe that? Like, who's gonna fall for this? Of course people are fucking mad. Especially people that voted for this and thought, hey, I'm voting for Trump because he's gonna release the Epstein files. Like, what a mess, dude. What a shit show.
Not pleased or satisfied with what they've said in this memo that came out unsigned from the Justice Department and the FBI on Sunday night. So what we are told is Dan Bongino did not show up to work today, that he is essentially not there out of protest. But whether or not he actually follows through on this still remains to be seen. We're still reporting that out. But it just speaks to the backlash that the White House is very much feeling and understanding after this memo came out, despite President Trump yesterday in the cabinet room asking, you know, who still cares about this? One thing we know is the MAGA base certainly does.
Yes.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much for that. We'll check back with you.
I don't think it's just the MAGA base. I think people in general think that it would be a good thing for this to come out. So what are they hiding?
Learn more. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez is also with us. And so, Evan, is it your understanding that if Bongino were to resign, it's as a result of the infighting, including with the AG, Pam Bondi, or is it mostly over the disappointment of these Epstein files either not existing or not being released? That's
an important distinction.
Well, look, I think Fred, there's a larger issue here, and I think, you know, if you look at Dan Bongino, he was a very successful podcaster. He had a very big following online,
and he was massively critical of Biden. He too, Dan too. It wasn't just Cash. Also, Dan was very critical of them not releasing the files and saying, "What are they hiding? What are they hiding?" So it's like, what are you hiding now, Dan?
certainly very financially successful with his podcast that was a very, very strong appeal inside MAGA world. And this job really hasn't been, I think, very much fun. And if you've seen him doing some of his interviews in right-leaning media and conservative media, he has said as much. He has said that this job is taking a toll on his life, on his personal life, with his family. He's having to essentially be separated from them while he's here in Washington doing this job. It's not nearly what he's used to back in the days, obviously. He is someone who came from law enforcement, so I think there's a bigger story here in terms of what Bongino is thinking, but I certainly think part of what Caitlin laid out just now is partly the story here, and that is that there is some daylight between top FBI officials and top Justice Department officials over the handling of this Epstein matter. You'll remember that back in February, the Attorney General Pam Bondi led this event at the White House where they brought in all these MAGA influencers, these conservative influencers on social media, and gave them, with great ceremony, these binders
and they
that were
so
supposed to
happy
contain
these
Epstein files. Turns out, though, most of the files were actually out there for years.
It was just old
so
shit.
it was a great embarrassment, both to Bondi and to FBI officials who really didn't have much role in this. And so that's where some of this begins and where you see some of the distance. And so I'll point out one quick thing that on social media today, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, has tried to respond to some of the pushback from Lara Loomer and some of the other, and he has basically tried to point out that Kash Patel and Don Bongino and the Justice Department leadership are all on the same page, that there is no daylight. If you look at the tweet, he says, the suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI and DOJ leadership on this memo's composition and release is patently false. Now, he's referring to the memo that went out this week where they said there's no there, we're not releasing anything else. It's very clear, Fred, that there is daylight between the FBI and the Justice Department over the handling of this. And so we'll see how this plays out in the coming days and weeks. We don't know whether Bongino is coming back to work next week. It appears he's taken the day off. He's down in Florida somewhere. And so we don't know whether he's going to be back to work next week, but we certainly know that this is not a story that is going to go away because, as Caitlin pointed out just now, certainly MAGA world is not done with this. They want more, and they want to see more from those documents that the FBI still has.
And they should. And it shouldn't just be, this shouldn't be like a partisan issue. Everybody should want this. Unless you're on that list, everybody should fucking want this. Like that shit that was going on there was fucked up. And there was a lot of people that seemingly are powerful U.S. citizens who were seemingly on that island doing God knows what. There should be justice. They should get these people. They should fucking find them. And they should release that fucking list.
Subscribe and like.